Hey guys, and welcome to our final episode in our Making a Great Helm series. We are on the last leg of our journey, so join us as we grind, polish, and assemble this project into our finished and battle-ready helm. What's going on? Reason that wasn't polishing is because it still has the scale on it. Scale is a hard iron oxide which forms on the surface of steel after it's been heated. So before we can do any polishing of any kind, we need to first grind the plates, smooth out all of the dints, scratches, and remove that hard scale so we can get to that final polish that we want to have in the finished piece. Each of the main plates is ground with 80 grit on the slack of the belt grinder. The goal is to create flow across the piece while removing all imperfections. This side of our plate is almost roughed in. We're about halfway through the process now. But on this side we have an indentation left from where we matched the ocular to the helmet in the previous episode. Oftentimes in grinding, you'll find that you have irregularities and low spots left from previous steps in the process. In order to get rid of those for the grinding process, we use planishing. And you can do that in two ways. One is with a hammer that has a bit of a curved radius from the inside and against an anvil or a flat piece of steel. And the other option is to use a planishing hammer, such as this, from the outside of the plate against some kind of stake to raise up the low spots and sink the high spots. And this leaves a nice even surface for our belts to run over in the grinding process. So, we've just finished grinding these main four plates at 80 grit. Now we get to move on to some of the more complex pieces. The ocularium, first and foremost, is going to be an intricate piece to grind because of those tight radii and the angles that we're trying to put bevels on, and even filing around the ocular slits. And the top of the helmet, while you wouldn't have thought it, actually is quite a complex piece because it has a ridge line here that we need to be careful not to grind through with the belt grinder and destroy a piece that we've worked so hard to create. Now let's get back to the process and keep grinding. So I've just taken a little break from grinding because I've noticed that this center section here of our top plate is off by a millimeter or two, and that's all it takes to screw up the central train of your helmet and enabling it to look nice and even. And that's really frustrating because we already paid attention to those details earlier in the process, so I've got it all put together here so I can check that, and now we'll just adjust that with some more grinding. Once the basic grind is complete, 120 grit is used to refine the finish and lay a smooth foundation for polishing. just seen us file in all around the edges and grind the profile. We're trying to get a nice even symmetry from one side to the other. And the files are nice in that they let us gradually clean out these tight radii that occur in the center of the helmet. Now, what we're going to do is use the belt grinder to profile the steel, bringing it from the 3mm at the edge of the ocularium down to 1mm along the edge, so that it blends and flows in with the rest of the helmet just nicely. Quite nice. I like that. On to the next thing. The foundation of the helmet is in place, but before we can dive into any kind of polishing, we need to address a key component, that is, function. We're not talking about mere convenience here, but rather the elements that integrate the helm with its wearer. With the era of the fully enclosed helm, the knight's head is protected better than ever before. However, the vision and exchange of air are now much more limited when compared to a simple nasal helm. To solve this problem, holes known as breaths were punched to allow the warrior to breathe more easily and add additional vision. There are many different styles of breaths that change over time. We see everything from vertical slits to offset holes, many holes, few holes, or even triangular patterns like on the Dargen Helm. However, what's interesting to note is that looking closer at the original artifact, the punching of the holes is quite rough and sporadic in some areas. In many modern sports-optimized helmets, such as those used by fighters in the Battle of Nations, the breaths are grossly accentuated when we compare them to the historical versions, in order to maximize breathing for the heavily armored combatants. In designing our helm, which will be used for active combat, we want to be capturing the aesthetic of the historical helms, but we will be diverting a little from the original breath pattern by adding more holes in an offset design to help increase its functionality. Now that we've avoided suffocating on the battlefield, let's make sure our heads don't get smasherated and turn into a pulp. Wow. So, what's the solution to that problem? Well, that's actually the liner of the helmet. Now you might remember that these helms have a nice flat top, and you'll be there thinking perhaps that will transfer the force directly to the top of the head. Well, you're wrong, because not only do the liners cushion the blows with this nice, soft linen material, but they also suspend the head in the helmet, which prevents the force from being directly transferred to the skull. The liner is sewn to a leather band which is riveted to the helmet. The chin strap and buckle are also made for the final stage of the process. The final process to transform the ground plates of steel into the gleaming armour is polishing. Step 1, we move to the buffing machine and use a greaseless abrasive paste to remove any remaining grind lines. Lastly, a buffing paste is used to polish the steel to a satin shine. As we polish all the remaining plates, we use rivets to lock the pieces together. There are two main ways to bring the plates of steel together to make our helmet. The first is to pin rivets on the inside of the helmet using these domed head rivets. The second is to rivet them on the outside of the helmet. Now, looking at the original Dargen Helm, we can see that some of those rivets are rough in size and texture, all indicative that those rivets were pinned on the outside of the helmet. So on our build, we'll be doing exactly the same thing. While armourers in the day would have made each rivet by hand, we'll be using a combination of annealed clouts and grinding down the heads of domed rivets for the larger holes. We're halfway there! Woo! Over 5 episodes, we've worked to build this great helm. Although in a different time, and with different tools,
the struggle is just as real. And here in 2020, we get to bring this artifact to life. We started with a plan, pursued excellence at every stage of the process, guided our techniques according to the character of the original. And now all of that is brought to a climax as we polish and assemble the helmet in its final form. A reproduction capturing the spirit and purpose of the original helmet.
Well, that wraps up our series on making a Great Helm. And what a stunner she is. Oh yes. Well, thanks so much for joining me on this journey and following it through to the end. And I hope you guys have enjoyed it just as much as I have and learned something through the experience. Personally, I've grown in such a deeper appreciation for the original artifacts and the excitement of replicating those finer details in these pieces. What a privilege it is to be carrying on the legacy of armor making over 750 years after this original helmet was crafted. So, thanks for being a part of our first ever YouTube series, and hopefully the start to a much larger journey exploring the art and craft of making armor in the 21st century. There'll be more episodes and series just like this one in the next few months, and I hope you guys can join us all there for more adventures just like this one. See you all there.